Good
Welcome
afternoon.
to Health Education Library for People, and it's a pleasure having you here on a regular basis. So could you please tell us and the audience about what are you going to talk today in today's talk? The topic is elements of human sexuality. So can you just give us a brief of what you're going to talk today?
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. Today we are going to, our topic for today is elements of human sexuality, and we are going to cover the different facets or the different areas which comprise of human sexuality. And as a result, after you hear this lecture, you should be in a position to understand your own sexuality or that of your partner better, and which in turn would help you to lead a better sex life. A very good early afternoon to all of you. Our topic for today is elements of human sexuality. Now, all of you, most of you are married, right, and have been through this process of, like experiencing sex with your partners and with other people if you have them in your life. Now, tell me, what are the different elements of human sexuality? Our whole topic today is practically very theoretical, but at the end of it all, you'll understand that it's so important that you understand that these things are also a part of sex. So what are the different elements of human sexuality? What would you say?
Emotional intimacy.
Okay, very good. What about you, sir? Okay. Yes.
Evaluation of our community. Evaluation.
Okay.
Producing and
You mean reproduction? Okay. What about you, sir?
Elements of sexuality, I think it depends on the other person who you look at. It may not be emotionally, but may be attracted sexually by the certain works which you have, something which is embedded in earlier.
Right. What about you?
The word element, what the exact meaning of elements?
Okay, elements means different aspects or different features of human sexuality, or components of human sexuality, so to say. Okay, let us begin. There are several concepts or several components of human sexuality, and the basic reason why we are doing this lecture is, as I said earlier, that we need to understand the different components of sexuality to understand our own sexuality as well as that of our partner. And anything which is understood and then practiced is much better than something which is not understood and simply practiced. Right? So today you will gain a very good understanding of your sexuality, and then probably you can help yourself better and also help people around you better. The first concept, the first component of human sexuality is sexual self-concept. Now, what is the meaning of a self-concept? Who would say, what is a self-concept? Yes. See, basically when we talk about self-concept, is the kind of feelings you have about yourself. And when you talk about sexual self-concept, is the sexual feelings you have about yourself. So the first component is sexual self-concept. Now, what does that consist of? It consists of your body image. Right? Now, body image is the kind of feelings which you have towards your body. If you're very fat, if you're very tall, if you're very short, if you're very heavy, if you are very, very thin, then you are likely to have negative body image. But body image which is, somewhat close to what we see of film stars, of models, or, like bodybuilders, then we think that, we have a very good body, and we tend to have a very positive body image. And our whole concept of body image is actually dictated by the media. When there was no media, people were very fat and they were very happy. They were very, very thin and they were fine. They were ugly and they were fine. But especially not so much with men, but with women, it's a very big problem, because throughout they see that women, like as models and actresses, they are, like very thin. They have a very shapely figure. They have an hourglass figure. They have certain, hip to waist ratio. So they feel that, they are not up to the mark when they are with their partners in the bedroom. Right? So some of the women, they don't want to shed their clothes while having sex because they have a very poor body image. They think my husband will make fun of me. Or if they have a lot of cellulite on their hips, they would keep their panties on. They would not want to, or maybe just lower it for some time till the intercourse happens, and then probably pull it up again. So these are some of the problems which happens when you have a poor body image. Right? And as I said, like, poor body image is basically created by the media. So it's very, very important that we have some kind of education for body image, so that we learn to appreciate what God has given us and we can always improve. Fine. So that is one component of self-concept. Then another concept of self-concept is sense of identity. Whether you are a man or you are a woman, or you are a hermaphrodite. A hermaphrodite is somebody like popularly known as eunuchs. Like we all have self-identity. We are all males. So we think that being a male means being violent, being aggressive, or being nice to women, things like that. Being a woman means what? Like she has to be less aggressive. She has to be passive. She has to be submissive. So that's sexual identity of a woman. So we also tend to develop these things. Now, one very, very important thing about body image is if you feel that you are not very attractive, you will have a less sexual desire. That is very, very important, because what happens, we constantly see images in the media. In every film industry, the main hero and heroine are always very, very good looking. If you've noticed, they will never be ugly. They will never be fat. They will never be very thin. They will always have very good bodies, very good faces. So what happens, and when we see them on the screen, they are always shown as the man approaches the woman and the woman says yes. The woman approaches the man says yes. And why is that happening? Because we think it's all happening because they're very good looking. Of course, there are so many other factors which are at play. When a man or woman says yes to sex, there are so many other things which are at play. But we think it's just because of the looks that, they are getting a nod. So that actually people who are ugly or who are not very attractive will feel very, very hesitant to approach a person of the opposite sex if they are straight. And they would also feel very guilty in approaching a person of the same sex if they are gay or a lesbian. Okay, so this would create problems. Now, there are some people who try to enhance their body image. How they do it? Through tattoos and through body piercing. I'm sure many of you have seen not only young people, but I've seen even old people doing tattoos and body piercing. If you know of one case, there's a man in UK, his entire body is completely covered with tattoos, including his genitals. And he has also done so much of genital piercing. And when he went from one country to another, and he had given a very, very unique name to himself. And his passport application was rejected and he was not allowed to move out of the country. You can barely see him, like you will be terrified if you see him. The number of tattoos he's got done on his body. He's not left any square inch of his body without tattoo. Right? So that's because he wants to make a statement that he is different from everybody else. These days when you see college going boys and girls, like they have tattoos over here, they have a scorpion tattoo over here, they have body piercing. Body piercing in the genital area is not very common in our country because most of the parlors are too embarrassed to do that. But in Western countries and European countries, like they are very open-minded, you can go and get your tattoo done in any part of the body you want. Okay, so the first, as I said, is sexual self-concept, which is the first element of human sexuality. Then we have behavior component of human sexuality. Now, what are the different behaviors of, what are different sexual behaviors? This is a pretty easy question.
What we talked about over there.
No, what are the different forms of sexual behavior? Please come in. See, one form of sexual behavior which we all know is penetrative sex, right? Which is very, very common, penetrative sex. What are the other forms of sexual behavior?
Like kissing, hugging.
Yes, kissing and hugging are affectionate behaviors. They may be sexual, they may be non-sexual. But when we talk about sexual behaviors, it would include something like masturbation. It would also include like oral sex. It would also include breast stimulation. It would include manual genital stimulation, anal sex, etc. Now, these are all variations of sexual behavior, right? Now, these are the things which most of the Indians are into it. If not most of them, at least 70 to 80% of men and women these days and even in the past used to indulge in these things, but it was not very talked about because they thought it was very dirty and cheap things to do. But there's nothing dirty or cheap about it. If both the partners are comfortable with it, there's absolutely nothing wrong. So these are the different sexual behaviors you can use at any point of time. For example, if a man is highly sexed and if the woman is not, the man could indulge in masturbation if he doesn't want to be unfaithful, right? Or sometimes, like suppose if the man is too tired and he cannot get an erection, or if the woman is too tired and she doesn't want to reach an orgasm, so they can give each other oral stimulation. So these things we should know that we have these options available. I have so many patients who cannot think about anything except penetrative sex. And you know, they are completely genitally focused, and then I have to tell them that, look, these things are also there. When you are watching a lot of pornographic movies, they do show these things, but they don't pay attention to it. They think it's only penetrative sex which matters, but it should not be like that. We should have a repertoire of sexual behaviors available within us, so that at any point of time, we are not frustrated because of that, right? So we should have those behaviors and we should use them. Okay, the next is thoughts. Okay, now what does thoughts include? It includes sexual fantasies. This is very important, which most of us indulge in sexual fantasies at some point of time or another. And how we view. For example, see, this is very important. The sexual fantasies we all know, and how we view people. For example, let's take the case of women's breasts. In India, a woman can breastfeed on the road, right? Because we don't think so that, although we do consider that breast is an erotic element of a woman's body, but still, it's okay. If a woman breastfeeds, we also know that she needs to feed the child at a certain point of time. And we don't pay much attention. But in American and European countries, the breast is attached with a lot of erotic, like attachment. So they will view a breast as something which is only an erotic part of a woman's body. They cannot relate to the idea that it is also something on which a child latches on and feeds itself. So in American and European countries and Australian countries, women are not allowed to breastfeed on the streets. They will have to go to special rooms, nursing rooms, or they have to be in their cars, in their complete privacy. You cannot breastfeed on the road, right? So that is how we view, like thinking. Even the case with rapists, they think that women who wear short skirts or or women who drinks are potential victims. They are easily available. That is what they think. But that thinking is entirely wrong. A woman may be wearing a short skirt and she may be drinking for her own pleasure. That's not a sexual invitation at all. So that is because her thinking is distorted. That's why these things are happening, right? So these are thought processes. Okay, so far so good. Any questions? Okay. Now we go on to values. What are sexual values? Anyone, any guesses? What are sexual values? See, basically sexual values are values which we learn for ourselves. We try to inculcate it in our children so that the society as a whole functions in a proper way. If we don't have any sexual values, people are going to just sleep around with anybody. They will fool around with anybody, mess around with anybody, and the entire society can become toxic, so to say. The entire society can become diseased. So when we talk about sexual values, one sexual value would be fidelity. Now why do you think so we have created this value of sexual fidelity? It's because we want to create some kind of harmony in society. If every man is allowed to sleep with every woman, or every woman is allowed to sleep with every man, you look at the kind of social problem that will arise. There are certain primitive societies where there are a bunch of 50 men and 50 women, and they are allowed to have group sex, but then they will not go beyond those 50 people, and they are very, very comfortable with the idea of group sex. But we are living in an industrial society where our culture, our social norms are very different. So we will need to have different set of sexual values. What we understand as fidelity, probably if you go to an anthropological society, they will say, what is this? They will find it very strange. But since we belong to a different culture, we need to have those values. They will have different kind of values, defined by their own culture and their own social system. So every culture will have a different kind of sexual values. Sexual values are definitions of what is right and what is wrong, or what is good and bad regarding sexuality. Now again, one thing is very, very important. What is right and what is wrong? People maybe who were born 30, 40 years ago, who are now in their 60s or 50s, they will think that premarital sex is wrong, right? But if you look at the present generation of men and women who are between their 25 onwards, or even 20 to 23 onwards, they think there is nothing wrong in premarital sex, right? So that is also very relative. With age, the whole situation and the whole understanding of people also changes. What we think is wrong, these people, they think, what is so bad about premarital sex? Or even if you look at contemporary thinking, they even think, what is so bad in extramarital sex? It's okay, if I don't get along with my partner, it's okay if I have sex. So even the whole concept of my right and wrong will be very different from his concept of right and wrong. Of course, we can only tell people the consequences of their behavior, but you cannot say don't do this and don't do that. They will not listen to you. You have to let them make their own decisions. Okay. Now, something which is very, very important, which we need to understand. Values and behavior don't match. I may say that, I'm never going to, alcoholism is very bad. Alcoholism is very bad. That is what I may say. But you never know. I may just go to a bar and start drinking. So my value and my behavior may not match. So many times, like in every part of the world, we think that extramarital sex is wrong. But then so many people are having it. We say that extramarital or premarital sex is wrong. So many men and women are into it. So there is no guarantee that if I am making a claim that infidelity is wrong, that doesn't mean that actually I will not do it in my personal life. You look at the big saints, what do they say? Don't have sex so many times, or like don't masturbate. But what are they doing themselves? They are also into it, right? So there is no guarantee that value and behavior will match. And only you can vouch for yourself, nobody else can vouch for you. So never even expect somebody else who says that, my values are that, I'll always be very, very faithful. You may just want to listen to him or her, but then if they behave in a different way, you cannot do anything about it. Only he or she can rule themselves, nobody else can. So you should not even make that mistake in trying to help them correct it. And you will see this inconsistency always. Like we always say that, he's saying something and why is he doing something? It's because the values which we make are very different from our body conditions, our social environment. So many times we make a commitment, but then in reality when you try to put that commitment into practice, it becomes very difficult. Not that there is no one in this planet whose values and behaviors don't match, but then if they don't match, don't be surprised. Fine, that is what I'm trying to say. Okay, then we have the next component, which is emotions. Now this is very important, which this gentleman said. What are some of the emotions which lead to sex? Come, this has to come very easily from all of you. What are some of the emotions which will lead to sex between two people?
Love, affection.
Very good. Love, intimacy and trust. These are basically three emotions: love, trust and intimacy. The moment these components are there, it will lead to sex. Right? And sometimes what happens, even these things are also being misused. People are being fooled into love, people are being fooled into false intimacy, or people are being fooled into trust. And then you end up having sex and getting fooled in the process, or getting a heartbreak. Right? But as of now, we would like to believe that these three things actually lead to sex. Same activity may produce different feelings. Now this is very, very important. See, for example, take the case of pornography. Pornography could lead to excitement or repulsiveness. Some men and women are very excited by it, and sometimes the same person may feel very, very repulsive towards it. So towards the same activity, you may have two different points of view at different points of time, or even like side by side, because we always exist in a state of duality. Where there is black, there has to be white. Where there is good, there has to be bad. If there is only good or only bad, we will never be able to understand the other point of view, right? And we all have the potential to be extremely good and extremely bad. So that we have to understand. No one can be entirely good or entirely bad all the time. We are all a fusion of the two. Fine. So far so good. Any questions? And then I'll have a question for all of you after we end up this session. Then we have the next component, which is interpersonal relationships. Okay, interpersonal relationships. So when we talk about interpersonal relationships, they could be of so many kinds. Now just listen to this very carefully. It could be a heterosexual relationship between a man and a woman. It could be a homosexual relationship between two men and two women. It could be non-marital, which is so common these days. Non-marital relationship. You could have marital relationship, which is very common, the most common form of relationship. You have extramarital relationships, where you are in a relationship with a partner apart from your own married partner. You could have a casual relationship. I have so many patients who have casual sexual relationships, which is commonly known as being a sex buddy, right? Where the man and the woman, they both know that they are not in love with each other, and they will meet up for a certain point of time. They will both enjoy sexual pleasure and both go their ways, and both are very fine with the whole idea. There was even a very nice movie on that. I don't remember the name, starring Natalie Portman. I don't get the name, but that was a very nice movie which they had covered the subject of casual sex. And then you have intimate relationship. When I talk about intimate relationship, to give you a small example, intimate relationship would comprise when you are able to share your trust with your partner, you're able to share your secrets with your partner, you're able to completely respect your partner. That is an intimate relationship, which Indians at the moment is lacking. Even in marriage, we don't have much of intimacy. We always maintain some kind of a distance from our partners. And that is one of the reasons why Indian marriages are also breaking up now. Then we have a personal relationship with someone, and finally a business related interpersonal relationship, which could be phone sex or prostitution, where there is no love but there is an exchange of sex and you are getting money for that. And again, like, these are just two examples I've given you about phone sex and prostitution. You can have so many different kinds of things, not in our country but in Western countries. Like, you have somebody as a somebody demonstrating a foot fetish. There'll be women who will be dressed up in high heels and shoes, and there'll be a man who would be just sitting at one corner, and this woman will be stroking her foot, and the man would be sitting and masturbating there. Fine. And when he is done, she would casually just wear her clothing and go away, and he would have to pay her and go away. And then you also have, like, strip shows, which is not available in our country. We have strip shows, we have striptease, we have full Monties, and a whole range of, in countries like Netherlands, you even have a live sex show, where you can even go to a certain place and watch sex live, right? Which is all very legal. Those are all, you're paying for something and you're watching sex, or you're enjoying those services. So those are all interpersonal relationships. Again, the last category, they could be very, very brief. Like, you have two strangers having sex, a one night stand, popularly called a one night stand, or a long term relationship where it could be a marriage, or it could be a live-in relationship, or it could be a group cohabitation like what we had in Osho's ashram, right? Group living, so to say, communal living, as they say. There are certain places, not now in our country, but in western part of the country, where we have this commune. We had Osho commune in our country some time back, but we do have certain communes also in other parts of the world, where people are living together without getting married. And they say that all the children who are born over there, they actually are sheltered away and reared by somebody else, not reared by the people who live over there. But then there was a lot of communal uproar that, how can you just produce babies and just leave them alone? So then there was a lot of ban on that. Emotional social relationship affects the quality of your sex life. Now, this is very, very important. Understandably, your emotional and social relationship will affect the quality of your sex life. If you're constantly fighting, what kind of sex life can you expect? A very poor sex life, right? And finally, we have what is known as sexual diversity. Sexual behaviors, listen to this one very carefully. Sexual behaviors, thoughts, emotions, values and relationships vary within the same person. Today I may think that, today I may think that, oh my God, pornography is so bad, it's harming people. And then maybe 2 days later I read an article on pornography and I think, oh my God, it's the best thing that happened to all of us. So even I may change my mind, I may change my thinking. Or today if I think premarital sex is so wrong, why are people indulging in it? And then maybe a month later I may think, what's so bad about it? So even we as human beings always have the potential to swing from left to right. So don't be surprised if today I'm saying something and maybe 1 year later I'm saying something else. It's either because I have evolved as a person or I have learned something new. Not that I'm not sure of what I'm saying, but all of us keep on changing our views with time. As we gain more experience, as we gain more wisdom, we also try to understand ourselves and the world around us better. Right? So there will be shifts in individual and between people. Let's say a man and a woman who at this point of time thought that extramarital sex is right, maybe if they end up in a big problem, they will start thinking that extramarital sex is very harmful for everybody, right? So the individual can also change their thinking, even people can change their thinking. And also you have to understand that no two cultures in the world are ever the same. We always blame that, the Western countries, this thing is not good, but that thing is not good. It's not actually, we say that American culture is bad or European culture is bad. What is happening is that those social conditions are now being replicated in our country, where both the parents are working. So what happens, the child becomes very lonely. And what happens when they want to evade loneliness? They want to befriend somebody, and then they want to get sexual with them. So the same situation is happening in our country. It's not that we are just watching television and people are, like making boyfriends and girlfriends. It's not like that. That same social situation is happening in our country, where both the man and woman are out of the house for the whole day. The child is left in front of the television set. What will he or she do for the whole time? With no company around, they will seek some company and get into these kind of, because a lot of frustration and loneliness that leads to teenage sex and things like that. I have not yet seen any single boy or girl who's always within their family and having teenage sex. I have not met anybody. It's only those teenagers who are very lonely and isolated, they want to experiment with these things. So if we can create a proper family balance, I know so many parents where one of the parent is always with the child or some relative is always with the child, then these things will not happen. You see, like teenagers, they are on Facebook for 8 to 10 hours on a day. And then 8 to 10 hours on WhatsApp. What are they doing? Nothing. Only constantly messaging each other, meeting each other, drinking and boozing. That is what is going to happen if they face loneliness and frustration. Okay, so this was about diversity. So now to sum up the whole thing, I would say that human sexuality consists of self-concept, our sexual behaviors, our thoughts, our values, our emotions, our interpersonal relationships, and diversity. Fine. So these are different components. Now I have a question for all of you, which is, I want you to think and let me know that suppose all of you are part of a policy making program where you have to design some kind of a sexuality curriculum for teenage boys and girls. So what are the different things you would want to include in the curriculum? Let's say you all are at the age of, maybe you all are grandparents or maybe parents, right? So assuming that all of you are 60 plus and you have grandchildren who are going to a certain school, and you are in a project, and you have to tell the committee that these are the things we want our grandchildren to learn. So what will you include in a course on human sexuality? Yes, one topic.
Firstly, to let the teenagers, the children understand more about sex. Secondly, the responsibility of having a sex.
Very good.
And thirdly, they should understand that the consequence of any unthought of action.
Okay, very good. So these three things you want to include. Okay. What would you like to include, sir?
Stop them and should teach them.
Yes.
Nowadays, because of this high school and college, they are not mature, and they don't care about the good and bad.
Yes, they don't know.
They indulge in anyway, and afterwards there are some complications arising.
Yes.
For that, we have to, even though parents suggest, but they don't care.
So can you mention one topic which should be included? Contraception, birth control and contraception, would you like to include in the curriculum? Okay.
See, I'll tell them there are six addicts. One is the good touch and the bad touch. They should, and other thing they should tell the girls about the monthly cycle when she reached that particular age. And night fold for the boys. These things they should put in the...
Okay. So these things you want to include.
Yeah.
Okay. What would you like to include, sir?
I think the parents should educate the children. Okay. To do.
No, in the school, like this is happening in the school, right? You have to create a format for the school sexuality curriculum. So at least one or two topics which you want to be included for your teenager, boy or girl, whoever. Okay, what would you like to say, sir?
In Tamil Nadu, there are separate schools for boys and girls.
Okay.
So, and also there is joint family there. So, this doesn't happen there mostly.
Okay, it doesn't happen. Okay, do you want to add something?
They should think that the boy, they should respect the girls.
Okay. Yes, what
First
would...
is the fair sexual knowledge. What sexuality and what it leads to, that fair knowledge, that is first point to teenagers. And second is the responsibility after the sex and the repercussions. And third thing is why marital sex is important. I mean, person should observe that one partner and what is the importance in terms of repercussion and the responsibility.
Right.
These are the main thing. And sexual hygiene.
Yes. See, we are missing out on something very, very important. Why are we missing out on sexual anatomy and physiology? That is something very, very... Yes. Basic sex education like sexual anatomy and physiology is a must. And then something which is very, very important is also we have to tell them about, which this gentleman pointed out in an oblique way, is birth control and contraception. We have to also tell them about sexual values, which is very, very important. That will go a very long way, and tell them in really good details. You cannot just skim the issue. You have to teach them each and every sexual value in a very nice way. You either make them watch films where, you know, like a particular sexual value is followed. For example, I'll give you an example. How many of you have seen this movie Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge? Okay, most of you have seen it. Where I really appreciated one fact was that Kajol, she doesn't believe in premarital sex, right? And she's very upset about the fact that, you know, he might have actually had sex with her. So this was a very good sexual value which you can tell the teenagers that, look, she being a heroine of the film, she believed in, having sex after marriage. So if you watch that movie with that angle, many teenagers will learn that. Teenagers will not listen to me, they will not listen to you because they find us very boring. But if Kajol says, I like to be a virgin before marriage, they will listen to her, right? Or probably if John Abraham says that, you know, I want to be a virgin before marriage, they will listen to him. They will not listen to you and me. So I think it's very important that sexual values are taught, and the best person who can teach sexual values would definitely be their parents. And second best choice would be teachers. Or at the most, they don't go to the doctors and nurses. That's a very far-fetched thing. But I would say parents and teachers are probably the best category of people who can actually enhance a man or woman's knowledge of sexuality. Then also, as the gentleman rightly said, responsible sex is very, very important. Responsibility and respect towards your partner, and also tell them what is the right age to have sex. That thing is very, very important. Educating them about the right age to have sex. And you have to tell them that, you know, when you have a very high self-esteem, that is the right age to have sex. You cannot have, even if you are 30 and you have a very low self-esteem, you should not be having sex. So it's got to do nothing with your chronological age. It's basically to do more with your mind. And then, of course, educate them about sexually transmitted diseases, which is a part of sexual hygiene, which, of course, like, you know, we teenagers these days, they are quite careful. At least they learn from their friends, and most of them are using contraceptives. But then men and women who belong to very, very poor families, where will they go and buy contraceptive from, right? So these things. And also what we need to educate them is about the media. See, about the media and how you should react to the media. That is something very, very important. And ideally these things should happen not when the child has already become a teenager, but slightly before he has become a teenager. Now this is very important. Like when you watch any form of media, you take any sequence in a Hindi film or in a Hollywood film, like basically love and sex proceeds very, very flawlessly. You know, everything is very, very effortless. The man proposes and the woman will say yes, or, you know, the woman will probably flirt with the man and the man will always say yes. So these kind of situations, when children see, teenagers, they think, oh my God, love and sex are such easy things, and, you know, you can really get them so easily. And most dangerous thing is films, when they show something, they don't show any consequences. The most harmful effect of a pornographic movie is not the act of intercourse, but when they show something that, you know, you can have sex with anybody and you can't catch any disease. that is a very wrong message which they are giving. Or even when they are showing that a doorman is ringing a bell and this woman, she's all horny and they immediately jump to bed. So you are giving the message that sex without love is completely okay. That is the message which you are giving. What you are watching is something, but the message which you are giving is much more deeper, it's much more harmful. So these things have to be told them, that these media messages are very, very distorted. Don't be carried away by them. Or like love is so easy. That's what they want us to believe, that love is so easy. Within a span of 3 hours everything happens and like you're fine, like nothing happens. So all these media messages, you have to protect your children from them. Let them watch everything they want, but you can allow them to watch pornography only after you have given them a proper sex education. Then it will not harm them, because it's really next to impossible for anybody to keep their children away from pornography. It's available right from the mobile till you name it, at everywhere it's available. So it's very difficult to not allow them to watch. So better thing is that you educate them first and then just let them watch whatever they want to watch. So at least they will not be affected by it. What I tell my patients who are such grown-up men and women, they're not even teenagers, they are such grown-up people, I tell them, you watch as much pornography as you want to watch, but first you read my book. So I let them read my book and then say, now you are free to watch anything you want. So it will not work against their better judgment. Right? We think that somebody who is like 40-50 years old, they know everything, but it's not like that. It doesn't work that way, because they have never read a book on sex education, they've only watched porn. So where is the right knowledge? So that has to be said. And another thing which you have to also tell them, as this gentleman rightly said, that good and bad touch has to be taught at a much younger age, not so late, before teens, but at a much younger age. And finally, any question which is raised by a child has to be answered by the parent. No matter what, has to be answered by a parent. So these things, I believe, are a very necessary part of curriculum. And most important of all, we need to understand that sex education never ever harms anybody. It never harms anybody. You cannot assume that because you sex educate them, they will start having sex. No, it doesn't work that way. It really doesn't work that way. People become more careful. They will delay their first intercourse. Studies across the world where a lot of research are taking place, they have said that boys and girls who are given proper sex education, they don't want to have premarital sex, or they want to delay their first act of intercourse, because they become more responsible. Their sexual making decision ability also increases. So I'm all for sex education at all age groups, and it should be very open, frank, and you should not try to hide anything. As a matter of fact, if anybody asks you a question, you should be free enough to answer that question. So
what is the solution now? Those who are indulging at the age of 13 and 16 and so on, they are not mature.
Yes.
They go by us. Sexual urge or temptation, whatever you say.
Yes.
They commit.
Yes, yes.
What is the solution?
See, I tell you, my solution is to teach them what is right sexual decision making. Right sexual decision making. Remove the kind of loneliness that exists in their life. We need to work at the social structure. Just by telling somebody don't do this, don't do that, it will not work like that. If one of the parent is always there, or if there is they are a part of a family, these problems will not arise. If there is somebody to talk with the boy or the girl, they will be in the home and they will want to be with their parents rather than with a boy or girl of their age. So one solution would be creating a kind of atmosphere where they don't feel lonely. The frustrations should be removed. Let them watch everything, give them a book on sex education, and let them ask questions to their parents. You have to act like a friend to your child right from day one, not when the child is 14 or 15 years old. And then I know so many parents these days, my colleagues, they are so frank with their children, and I can vouch that they are all in their 18, 19s and 20s, and all of them are still virgins. I can vouch for you. Looking at, I have met most of my friends' children, and I can vouch that they are all virgins, and they are very disciplined boys and girls. Even a city like Mumbai, some of them are living in South Bombay, which practically like sex can happen at anywhere between Virar and Churchgate. But I can vouch for you, because the way I talk to these teenagers, I know that they are all virgins and they have very good sexual values. So it's very much possible. when you have a very good family environment where good sexual values are practiced, so to say, children will not go astray even in this time and age. So I would say that sex education and basically those negative emotions have to be removed from their mind.
But you don't find sex education in the schools at present.
Yes, it's all gone.
Some of the schools are given.
Very, very little.
Very few.
Yes, but it's as good as nothing. That's not the kind of education I'm talking about. You need to have a proper education like any other subject, history, geography.
Correct.
So I think the parents, they should give parents to the books.
Yes,
good books,
yes. Parents, I think, would have to take the best first and
books, and they should attend workshops.
yes.
Parents are good, but they are shying away. They say go to doctor and all this.